Hi, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvellously well. Today in our How to Arrange series, we're going to do a track by an artist called Gabriel Hugoboom. This song is called You and Me Tonight. It's a wonderful song. It features my lovely upright piano. We recorded it with a pair of Lewitt LCT 550s, a separated pair. It's a great sounding piano. It's pretty trashy. There's a couple of notes that barely play. It probably needs some tuning, but to be honest, it gave it a lot of feel, a lot of emotion. And, you know, not everything has to be perfect. I think as we talked about very early on, maybe a few months ago when I first started these YouTube videos, I talked about using like a Harmony 12-string acoustic that I have over there. We used it on Back to You, for instance, with Trevor Hall. And these are cheap instruments, but they have a lot of, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, a lot of vibe, a lot of feel, a lot of emotion. You know, so sometimes it's great to use cheaper equipment. Anyway, so let's get stuck into the song. As ever, please subscribe. Go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list, and you'll get lots of free goodies, and we're going to have a premium channel soon, so you'll get to see even more fun stuff. But anyway, let us move over here. Here we have it. Now, this is a relatively simple song in some respects. He wrote it on piano. It's him playing piano. There's a little bit of editing you can see there. Not as crazy as you would think. Most of it's just played performance, and then I've just moved some stuff around against the groove that we built. It grows exponentially. I've done some very simple stuff. It's really vocal centric. So look, let's just listen from the top. Okay, so that piano there is the upright in the other room. What I've got is I've got a good old-fashioned REQ, just a low roll-off at 84, nice gentle slope. There's not a huge amount of low stuff going on, but if there was, we're getting rid of it, you know. We don't have any issues here with air conditioning, really, unless it's going crazy, but, you know, that might be another reason to sort of put some low, depending on your studio space. A little bit of low rumble might come in sometimes, depending on how sensitive the mics are. But that wasn't why I did it. I just did it to make sure it was clean down there. We don't need the low lows, so let's pull them out, or at least gently roll them off. Okay, now, again, you know, this is a favorite of mine. It's a parallel compressor in a box. It does a great job. So it's pulling up, it's just reducing the dynamic range sweetly. This is without. Very dynamic, a little too dynamic for me. Now listen. You still got that down, 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 but it's not as down. It doesn't come down quite so much. Okay, and last but no means least is an API EQ with some 10K boost, a little 3K, so just a gentle high mid and super highs, and that's it. So really just some low roll-offs of super lows, like 80 and below, and some high boost. It's very gentle what we're doing on it, but it sounds great. Last but no means least is an R verb. It's a good go-to reverb for me. I've got a second on it, wound off the top end here, so it's a little darker, so it just sounds like in a dark room. It doesn't really rear its head out until you start boosting the super top end. If we boosted the highs there, you might hear a little bit more of it. All it really does is create the feeling of this piano just being in a reasonable size room. So it keeps it intimate sounding. Okay, so that's our piano. The first thing that obviously comes in is the vocal.
Would you look this way for me? Just one more picture is all I need to see. The ground is falling under me. The sky above is darkening, and all we know is at an end.
Great. So the vocal It's using all the same tricks that I do in different balances. Like, you know, I have a lot of different things that I use, and then sometimes I push other elements up or down. So please go to the Vocal Tricks video and you'll see all of that stuff. But what's interesting here is some real subtle kind of things. This is what this song is all about. It's a piano vocal with just some subtleties. So here is our first thing that comes in. And that came from Logic. We've got a trim on it just to get some more level out of it. There's a parallel compressor on it, just to kind of even it out. And then of course, our old friend Decapitator. So we're really driving it hard. If we take that off, it's still good. But with the back on, it just trashes out a little bit. And then our old friend Echo Boy. And then just to edge it a little bit more, tiniest amount of lo-fi, which is a free plugin that comes in Pro Tools. Don't underestimate lo-fi. Lo-fi is, I use it a lot, very subtly, just to kind of slightly edge up things. You'll notice with stuff I don't do huge amounts of EQs and stuff like that. I'm doing very small movements. I might use multiple EQs, like an EQ, then compress, an EQ, then compress, like little tiny movements. I won't do huge boosts and cuts. I always hear that in music. It always sounds overly EQ'd. So I'm not a big fan of that. Okay, so that's all that's coming in there. The next thing that starts to come in is this really low-level string parts. Let's have a listen.
Is that an end?
Just follows the vocal line.
We could run if you wanted to.
Creeps in the string line.
We could say just to see it through.
Now what you can see there is I've done quite a lot of fun stuff to it. First of all, I've got a spread on it because it was a mono source only, so I've created a stereo. That's right at the end of everything. And I've got a trim on it just to give it a little bit more level. MV2, same thing, just to kind of like compress and reduce the dynamic range a little bit, just to give it a little bit more guts. And then, for distortion this time, I'm using SansAmp. With no SansAmp. With SansAmp. Good, just edges it out a little bit. Back to our old friend Echo Boy. See where we got the mix. And we got full-blown quarter notes, so quite a long delay. And then an R verb again. And about 50-50 dry effect. So there's quite a lot of fun stuff going on in that, but it's trashing it out.
If you wanted to,
creeping in.
We could say just to see it through. Just know that I'm right here for you. Take me where the stars go.
Okay, so what's happening here is we've got a double that comes in against the lead vocal. Here's our lead.
Take me where the stars go.
Just lightly.
When daylight finds its way.
And the double is not affected.
Save my soul from
super, super low, just to thicken it out ever so slightly. This is all about subtlety, this song. Now the bass line, again, is just, this is interesting. And I've actually went to town a little bit on this by taking off all the top, because that was just too much nose, you know, just too much point for me. And then an MV2 again, just to even it out.
I'm tired of
So very subtle.
this pain. So won't you close your eyes? 'Cause it's you and me tonight.
Listen to this.
You and me tonight.
Little swell reverse effect.
If I can.
There's no EQ done on this. This is as it comes. This is a Logic creation. And you can manually control the speed. And that's going into the second verse, which has the addition of a Nord organ. Gabriel's really big on organs. He loves playing like a Hammond, and this was Daniel Powter's organ that was here, Nord that was here, and we used it. And, you know, on its own, it's very ecclesiastical, very church-like, but in the track, it adds a sort of ominous mood to the track.
If I
Very
can
subtle.
take your pain away, could you rise up and fight another day?
Come the bells.
If all our love can drown their hate, when trumpets sound on Judgment Day, would you forgive or make them pay? We could run if you wanted to.
Strings creeping back
We
in.
could say just to see it through. Just know heaven's waiting for you.
Cool. Now, before we get to that second chorus and then the outro, I just want to point out that the Nord, we printed the MIDI as well. Now, we just print the MIDI just in case. Now, as it is, it's just playing downbeat chords. It's not a fancy part. But it's worth printing the MIDI as well as the audio, because if you do want to edit it, which we didn't need to, but if it was a very complicated part, we could then obviously trigger the Nord again and reprint the audio. As it turns out, you can tell it's just 3 takes put together, 3 punch-ins, really simple. So it wasn't a complicated part, but it's always good if you can to print the MIDI if you have access to that, because this is the audio from a Nord keyboard, and we're getting the MIDI information. Also, later we might change our mind on the sound, and we've got the MIDI there, and we can use some virtual instruments inside of Pro Tools, for instance. So where you can, I like to print a DI of a guitar as well as an amp, because that can give me reamp situations, or I can use virtual simulators, you know, guitar simulators. And the same thing when printing like audio from keyboards, I like to print the MIDI as well. Okay, now coming out here on our chorus, second chorus, we get a little bit more.
Take me where to start.
One big thing is a synth bass. It's just playing, framing the chords. So that allows our other bass sound to get creative. That's our other bass sound, but you see what I did there is I got kind of nutty with it. I took away the low lows and I took away the high highs and just gave it a mid-range sound. So that same bass sound we've been using before where we EQ'd the top out, now we're taking out the lows and letting the mid-range come through. Again, the MV2, but now the decapitator's on it. Because that's just 280s DX70 for me. Put this on it. Now it's a bit more dangerous. Now it's more Depeche Mode. Little tiny bit of reverb. So it's only got 30% mix. And then a widener because we're going to use it in stereo on this. Because we have the sub bass above, which is giving us like a mono bass line down the middle. And what we're doing is we're spreading this one just a little bit around the outside of it. So they become one bass sound, but there's a little less potential phase or polarity issues. Okay, so that's our bass stuff. And now the other stuff that changes very subtly is some drum elements come in. Now there's not a lot, but there's this. So simple. Just an addictive kick and a snare. Just one cymbal. All it is. So this whole chorus, those are the only 2 elements that change. Is the bass sound and there's the simple kick.
All this pain, what did you find now? What did you find now?
This is a djembe, again from Logic. It's got a pan man on it, going crazy. Decapitator just destroying it a little bit. And then lo-fi just for an extra bit of distortion. just a tiny amount. Subtle.
My breath now, holding my breath now, hoping I'll find you way up there. So won't you close your eyes, 'cause it's you and me tonight. We're going home tonight.
So there's some fun vocal effects going on. There's some reverse delays which were printed after we made them. Have a listen to this.
What did you find now?
So it's detune delay. There's a second one here. It's on the whole track, piano and vocal. And then on the very end, very fun. So look, as you can see, it's a very simple song. It's very vocal centric. It's really about the vocal on the piano. It's a beautiful song. It's written about him and his girl. And, you know, it was a case of like, we did a lot of stuff and then pulled back. And this is what we ended up with. Very simple production, but very vocal centric, about a vocal on the piano. Thanks ever so much for watching. That's a very, you know, simple piece of production. Sometimes, you know, some of the stuff we do is very involved. The Alex Calise one has a lot of gang vocals. There's like 24 vocals going on, etc., and multiple guitar parts. On this, this is all about the piano and the vocal. It's my trashy old Baldwin piano and Gabriel's vocal. And those are the two most important things. And I didn't want to get in, clutter it up. And the song's not yet released, but the people have heard it, love the vocal performance on this. And I believe that, you know, sometimes you can have an amazing vocal performance, but you can overproduce a track. I've done it many times, overproduced a track, and then nobody knows that there's an incredible vocal performance in there. So it's always just finding that balance. What we ended up doing lots more overdubs in this and then pulling them back. And again, we did pre-production for about 3 or 4 days before we started this. And we built on the original piano track and kind of added very subtly to it. So definitely a less is more approach. Please leave me any comments you have about the song, but of course any experiences that you have recording this kind of thing or anything. You know, let's talk about production. You know, I've explained the mix and the basic arrangement because it never goes back to the chorus at the end. It just goes back to that "You and Me Tonight" because that's really the power in the song. That's the lyric that carries it. So it's not a traditional verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out. But I think it suits the intimacy of the song. So again, let's talk about arrangement, let's talk about production, mixing, you name it. I love hearing your suggestions and I love hearing your experiences. So thank you ever so much for watching and have a marvelous time recording.